Some things never cease to amaze me. Sunrises, hitting a golf ball straight, and the overwhelming ignorance of the common person. Here's a thought. Use Form Bs to determine classification. This, in fact, is competitive balance. Season 8 of Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everyone is funny or tells funny stories, but everyone has a story. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 8, and I have a very, very special guest for you guys today. He's a prominent figure in Oregon's high school football coaching community. He's been instrumental in building a winning culture at Gold Beach High School, where he led the team to 5 state title appearances and won 2 championships. Coach Kevin Swift, thanks for being on with me.
My pleasure.
Well, Coach, when I was told to reach out to you and that you had great stories and stuff, I didn't realize that you're a third-generation high school coach that grew up in Southern California.
Yep, that's indeed a true story. My wife is thrilled because we had 2 daughters, so the coaching lineage is going to come to an abrupt halt. But that's okay. You know, nothing's permanent in life, so I got 2 wonderful daughters that are very successful in what they choose to do, but coaching's not one of them.
So what was it like growing up in Southern California with a dad and a grandfather that were both high school coaches?
I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe. I would imagine Southern California was a lot like Atlanta was 20, 30 years ago when I was growing up. It was rural, and when people think of Southern California, rural is probably the furthest thing from their minds. You know, I grew up in a town called Capistrano Beach, San Juan Capistrano area, and it was all cattle ranchers and Basque citrus farmers, and it was a cool life. It was a neat life. When I was 7 years old, I asked my dad for a mini bike, and he laughed at me. He says, "Why? So I could bury you?" So he bought me a surfboard, and I fell in love with surfing. I'm kind of torn on a day-to-day. I love the game of football. I love what it does for young people, and I also love the solitude and the chance to be alone in God's world surfing. I went to Dad's practices. I went to Dad's film sessions. I mean, I was breaking down film at 10 years old. He was an unbalanced wing tee guy, very much in the image of Pappy Waldorf, a famous coach from the 50s at Cal up in Berkeley. So he had the secret handshake and all that stuff that wing tee people got. And I learned the game from the greats of Southern California football. Guy named Ray Solari, who just recently passed. My coach is at Servite, which is a Trinity League school. Ken Visser, who would go on to be a defensive coordinator at Long Beach State and Cincinnati, for a guy named Dave Curry. And Dave Curry lived with my family his senior year because his parents had perished in an accident. So it was football and surfing for me growing up. And truthfully, when I got to high school, I had to kind of step away from surfing. I went to high school 42 miles from where I lived. My dad thought that I needed the discipline of a parochial school, so I got sent to an all-boy Catholic school, and didn't think I'd love it, but I actually fell in love with it and had a great 4 years there, and got a scholarship to play back in Iowa, University of Northern Iowa, and then after tearing up my knee and having my scholarship reduced, I came back to Southern California and finished up at a small, at that time, NAIA school, University of Redlands. And I kind of knew at an early age that my path to continuing in football was going to be coaching, not playing. I I got the most out of an athletic body with my brains and brawn. Um, but my dream since I was about 12, 13 years old was to be a coach. Um, and went to school to fulfill that dream. And in 1983, I was offered the secondary job at an NCAA Division III school, Claremont McKenna, who had a very well-known West Coast coach named John Zinda, who'd won a national championship by taking a year sabbatical and joining John Robinson's staff at USC. And coached there for 2 years, and then became the youngest defensive coordinator in Division III football at, I want to say 25, 26 at University of Redlands. And he was there for 2 years. And the head coach got fired, and you know what happens when the head coach gets fired. The rest of us get shown the door too, and was kind of coming out of a toxic relationship, and so left the Inland Empire, the interior of Southern California, and went back to the coastal community that I grew up in. Got a nice apartment overlooking the beach with my best friend, and lived a really fun, exotic life for about 7 years till I met the woman I was going to marry. I would, that surf lifestyle has always been something I'm very fond of. So I was kind of a defensive mercenary. A school would hire me to run their defense. I would take a long-term subbing assignment for someone out on maternity leave, or a lot of schools in Southern California have full-time subs that are on campus every day. And they just fill in when teachers are gone, fill in classes, just fill-ins. And no benefits, but a decent salary. And I would coach football and had some good success. And then hop on a plane with my surfboards and head to South America or Indonesia to surf from roughly February till May. And then come back and either stay at the same school or go to the next best offer and coach football. Football's really different today. I mean, I never thought I was good enough to apply for a head coaching job until I had, 15, 16 years in as an assistant. Now guys, and I'm not faulting them, it's just a different world. Guys do 2 or 3 years, do 1 year as a coordinator, and then think they're ready for a head coach. And, I hope they are. I don't think they are, but I hope they are. So, in 1991, I met the woman that I was going to marry. And she said, it's time for real work, real job. And so I took a job at Warren High School, an old aerospace town in Southern California, Downey, and was the defensive coordinator there. And had some great success. But in 1997, after we had our first child, my wife kind of looked at me and said, get us out of here. Because Southern California basically is wall-to-wall concrete from LA to San Diego, with the exception of Camp Pendleton, kind of breaks it up. But she worked about 7 miles from home, and it took her 40 minutes to get there. Mm-hmm. So we had a 4-month-old, saw a flyer for a job on the Southern Oregon coast, and I said, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So, about the time we're having my first child, I'm about ready to become a head coach. So I put in for a head coaching job in Ventura, which is about 3.5 hours north of where we grew up. The Channel Island Raiders. And I was going to go up there, and I interviewed for the job. And my wife, who's about 7 months pregnant, says, "We're not going. I don't want to move. I don't want that job. Don't take it." Well, I've already committed to the interview, so I'm going. And I'm taking the interview serious because I think this is good practice for the job that I do want to take eventually. And they haven't had much success, and so it gets to the interview, and it's a panel there, and they're kind of asking me, well, what would you do to change, the stars of Channel Islands High School? And I said, well, I would get rid of that dumb Yosemite Sam mascot that gets his ass kicked by a bunny every morning in Saturday cartoons and come up with a mascot that kids can be proud of. Needless to say, I didn't get a call back with a job.
So they were partial to the Yosemite Sam logo, I take it.
Well, me and my buddy took over a job that had never won. He's the head coach, and he's a close friend of mine. And he goes, "Come be the DC, and I'll get you a long-term job." And we were at a school called Buena Park for 2 years, the Coyotes. And our mascot was Riley Coyote. And it's gone. And I don't know how he got it, but he wants somebody to go bag a coyote and stuff it. And he put that in the front of the school and says, "This is our mascot now, a rated looking, scrawny coyote that looks mean." And he changed our school colors from Kelly green to white to forest green and white. And we proceeded to have 2 9-1 seasons. And give them more success than they've ever had. And some schools know how to handle that, and some schools don't. So anyways, we have our firstborn child, Mariah. And Julie goes, "Get me out of here." And I'm like, "What is happening to you?" Because, I interviewed for a job, and you said we weren't going. And my mother pipes in, she goes, "Hormones, hormones, hormones, hormones." And I'm like, okay. So right about then, Bigger, Faster, Stronger was running ads for coaches wanted in the country, primarily the West, because Bigger, Faster, Stronger is primarily a West Coast, Western company. And so a little job in Gold Beach, Oregon, a little high school, about 300, right on the ocean. And I said, "What the heck? Let's throw up a resume." Well, they called me like 3 days later and said, "Hey, we'll even pay for you to fly up and do the interview," which should have been somewhat of a sign on how desperate they really were. And so I flew up in mid-May, had a good interview. Beautiful little town, football stadium right on the beach. And good interview. 2 days later, they offered me the job, and my wife said, "Let's go." And so in August of 1997, we loaded up a U-Haul twice, because I don't think any man truly knows how much junk he collects until he's married. This is typical of Southern California. I went down and got a couple day laborers down where the hardware store was, came back and unloaded our condo into the U-Haul, and the U-Haul was full and the condo was still half full. So I had to run and get a bigger U-Haul and transfer it and get it, and got it loaded up, and spent the night at my parents' house and hit the Oregon Trail the next morning. Drove the U-Haul while my wife followed with a newborn in our Pathfinder and 2 cats. I'm not sure why we brought 2 cats 900 miles with us, but we did. And landed in Gold Beach, a little school of 295. Had a little bit of success in the mid-70s, tied for a state title before state organizations were having ties broke. and became the special ed teacher and the head football coach at little old Gold Beach High School. My dad could not stop laughing when he told me what I was doing. And I'm like, what is so funny to you? He goes, I've prepared myself for this, for 15, 16 years. And he's laughing because you're going to step back in time. I'm like, what do you mean? Because you're going to step back in time into the 50s where it's you and maybe one other guy are the coach. And you're the equipment guy. You tape, and I'm like, nah, it can't, no place is that behind the times. And sure enough, I got here and I had no assistants because, I was from California and that was, that was one strike against me already. And I had no trainers. I had no weight room. I had no assistant coaches. And I had found out that about 8 coaches had turned down the job before I was finally dumb enough to take it. And by the way, when my U-Haul was filled, the superintendent called me and said, hey, we made a little mistake on your salary. And I'm like, well, if you're calling me, it wasn't a mistake in my favor. So it was like $6,000 less than I thought. But nevertheless, we wanted to change the lifestyle, Coach. I mean, me taking the train to work every day, her, going 7 miles and it taking 45 minutes, the exorbitant cost of daycare. We need a lifestyle change. And as much as I wanted to coach football, my father said football has to come after family. And he actually said it comes after faith and family. And so I wanted to put my family someplace where my family wanted to be. And so if you were to ever look at Gold Beach, Google it, you will find it is a very captivating, beautiful natural resources, outdoor lifestyle place. It's definitely God's country. And I know the people in the South thinks that Texas and Georgia is God's country. And I'm not going to argue with them, but I've seen this place take people's breath away. So got here, and I went through hell for 6 years. I think there was a petition to get rid of me every year. I had dead raccoons put in my mailbox. They tried to egg my house, but they couldn't reach it, which was actually no weightlifting program. That made sense. They had no arms on them. And so I really had to roll up my sleeves and build a program from scratch. And not only build a program from scratch, but try to get some buy-in. Any coach will tell you that once the community and once the kids buy in, the sky is the limit. But I was an outsider. I was from California. And like I told them, I go, hey, your timber ruined where I lived. So it's only fair that I get to come up and screw with you guys a little bit. So the kids were always loyal to me. The parents wanted a state championship a year after I got here, and it just, nothing was in place. We had marvelous athletes, but there was never an investment to be good. They thought football season started, the third week in August and got over the last week in November. There was no investment to being good at it.
So what did you do to get that?
Well, it went in stages. First of all, we ran probably the country's biggest high school contact camp in the country. We ran 3 sessions of 16 teams from the California border with Mexico to the Canada border and over to Idaho. We brought in 16 teams, and you could go pads and practice 5 days and scrimmage each other and have weightlifting contests. So I put the spotlight on our kids. The superintendent said, you got to raise all the money that you need for the program. And Catholic school kind of prepared me for that, because I remember going door to door selling communion candles. and that was agony. So, it was $100 a kid. So teams would bring 40, 50 kids. We have a very park-like campus, so they would pitch tents overlooking the beach or stay in gyms, and we had 5 quality football fields that we could all use, and so we had big school 5A 6A schools that would come, and our kids were awestruck at first, flat out awestruck. And I said, how are we going to get this buy-in? Because they would see these teams come for camp, and they'd buy in, we'd be competitive. But the minute the teams went away, they went back to doing nothing. They didn't understand that those teams were going back to their campuses to keep weightlifting, to keep working out, to keep doing the things that schools on the West Coast are allowed to do to be successful. So finally in 2003, I took some camp money, because we were making $60,000, $70,000 a year on camp, and I loaded up all my seniors into 2 Suburbans. We had 9 seniors, and we drove to Mater Dei High School in Southern California. Bruce Rollinson's a longtime friend of mine. In fact, I think I'm the only Servite friar that he liked, because Servite and Mater Dei is an old rivalry. And I asked them point blank, I said, hey, can we come work out with your kids? Can you let us shadow your kids so my kids believe? Because I think kids today are show me, not tell me. When you and I grew up, if an adult told you something, you took it as the truth and at face value. Kids don't. So you had to show them. So the deal was we were going to go down to California for 9 days. 4 of those days would be working out with Mater Dei. 3 of those days would be allowing coach to surf in warm water, going to Angel games, going to Knott's Berry Farm, letting the kids see what the city was like. And because I had kids as we're going across the San Francisco Bridge saying, Coach, I've never been further than 50 miles away from where I lived. And so we went down, and Mater Dei accepted us with open arms. Matt Barkley, one of their great quarterbacks, is still pen pals with several of my players. And we worked out and practiced with them, had camaraderie with them, and my kids found out that, wow, first of all, you can work out all summer and have fun. If you work out all summer, you're going to be ahead of the teams you're playing, and you got a shot to beat them. And we did that 3 consecutive summers until my mom passed away suddenly. And so we lost the ability to stay at their house and do that. But I'm honest with people. When I won my first state title, Bruce Rollinson got a picture from me of the team and how important the Mater Dei contribution was to the local beach high school. And I'm forever indebted to not only Bruce, but his whole staff. And a lot of those guys are, you find out, you're raised to hate each other because they're the rival Catholic school, different colors, different mascots. And then when you graduate and you start hanging out with us, you find out it's the same message at both schools, just different colors and different mascots. So our kids bought in, and we continued to run the camp, and our kids began to excel. And little old Cold Beach would take on schools of 3,000 or 4,000, and in 20 minutes, because we had no depth, so we could play with anybody for 20 minutes. We had great success against schools, 3,000, 4,000, and did really well, and started a 10-year period where we didn't lose a league game in 10 years and played in 5 state title games. My lack of experience in state championship games cost us our first one, lost by a point. And then won in '07, lost in '08 in a tight ball game, got blown out in 2010, and then proceeded to blow the same team out in 2011. And then I stepped away in 2018. Coaching at a small school is really difficult. And you asked earlier what changes have occurred in high school football from, I don't know, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I remember as a player being excited for practice, being excited to go out there and get better and have a chance to look good. I had to motivate the kids to have fun at practice. Practice was a drudgery, and I think some of it's the way Oregon sets up its schools. I've argued since I got here that they keep kids way too long in school. Our academic day starts for football players starts at 6 in the morning with early bird weightlifting, but they don't get out of school till 3:30. And no athletic period, and Oregon in all their wisdom decided kids shouldn't get grades for athletics. So our kids don't even start practice till 4:15. They're tired. They're mentally maxed. So you have to bring a lot of enthusiasm as a coach, and the guys that I picked to be my assistants to bring that intensity and enthusiasm and excitement to practice. Well, you do that for 29 years. That's exhausting. And then, the age-old adage, which is harder, building the monster or maintaining the monster? And it's definitely maintaining the monster. Staying on top of that hill is a son of a gun. And so our kids, we starting in '03, our motto was we're going to outwork everybody every day. And we worked out every day. Schools take Martin Luther King and President's Day off, and we did too. But our kids came in at 6:30 and left. If there was in-services that day and there were no classes met, our kids came in and left. We competed. A guy named Tony Sanchez, he's the head coach at New Mexico State. He used to bring a big school up from San Ramon, the Bay Area, but 4,000 kids school. Roster 80. And little old Gold Beach would line up with them, Monday morning and see how we could do. And truthfully, we did okay. A big school from Boise would get there Saturday afternoon, and we would scrimmage first thing Sunday morning because Coach did a scouting report, and none of the morning kids could play on Sunday. So they were depleted, and that was a great day for us to play them. How did I get it done? Never give up. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Tell the kids you love them. Tell them this is good for them. Stick to your guns and build a program. And I feel really fortunate that the kids bought in. I had a meeting with parents in 2003 after the 5th petition. I put them all in the gym. I said, hey, you guys are unhappy with me. I go, believe it or not, I get it. I go, but let's try this. Let's just try this. Let's try shutting your mouth and doing everything that I ask. I go, because if I tell Johnny to carry the ball this way, and he comes home at the dinner table and he tells his dad, Coach Swift says to carry it this way, Johnny's dad is going to call me a horse's ass to carry it this way, and his son is going to listen to him because that's his father and he should. I said, so let's try this. Shut your mouths. Make your kids do everything I ask them. And if I lose, I'll quit, leave, and go somewhere else. Well, we went 13-2 and lost by a point in the state finals because my quarterback believed in his superstitious shoes that he was electric taping on his feet. and he blew his ankle out, and end of the first half, and we lost 20-19. Because, like a lot of young coaches, I didn't have a plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F. I had a plan A, and plan A was great, but plan A didn't count on my quarterback getting hurt. Probably the same plan the Broncos had last weekend. But I got to tell you, the kids were never the problem. I mean, the kids, while the kids weren't willing to do everything I asked them to do, the kids openly admitted and say, hey, we're not winning because of Coach Swift. We're not winning because we're not executing, we're not strong enough, blah, 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 blah. And so, that meeting with the parents, taking the kids down to Mater Dei, it changed the stars of this program. I would like to say it was all me, but, I'm just a man with a vision. I'm a man with a vision who was told at a very young age that there's always going to be people more talented than you. The key is, are you willing to outwork them? And my daughters will tell you that I can outwork anybody on the planet when it comes to football or being a great social studies teacher or being a great dad. And being a great Catholic. I mean, I was all bummed. I was on a streak of 36 rosaries. And then my wife said, we're going to Vegas to see Zach Brown Band. And I just couldn't find time in Vegas to get the rosary done. Go figure. It was a heck of a ride, Coach. It was a heck of a ride. Hey, just thinking about that, there's a celebrity in Atlanta that I coached. It's a radio celebrity. A guy named Finneran. Mm-hmm. He was Vic's favorite target with the Falcons. And he's a radio show host in the Atlanta area, I believe.
So what was it like that first state championship? The vindication.
What a cluster. What a cluster. So I don't know how familiar you are with small towns. They like, see, I'm a very stoic, no nonsense guy. Well, they have a parade when you leave town.
Oh yeah, we have those. I'm in Middle Georgia, outside of Warner Robins, and I coach at a small school now. And I've generally coached at small schools, enrollments from 800 down. And so, roll up the sidewalks. Hey, they're leaving, and then when you got home, if you won, there'd be a parade. So
right. So we have a parade, which I didn't realize takes me off my time frame of where I want to be. So this is the last year of the championships are at Autzen, where the Ducks play. So we get up there on a Friday night, get a quick practice in at Autzen, get our pictures taken. And we were staying at the downtown Hilton, baby. The school's got me a suite for my family, and we got a bunch of pizzas delivered for the kids for dinner, and we're doing hall checks, and we're doing what everybody does when they get teenagers on the road. We're not sleeping. So I don't know. It's about 9:00. My parents are up. The offensive line coach from Mater Dei has come up. He's going to set up a booth for me. And we're excited. We're playing Lost River, who, they ended up being really close friends. We're about 5.5 hours away. So we get pizzas, and it's about 9:00, and I step out in the hallway, and it smells like a Grateful Dead concert. The marijuana is just piping down the hallway, and I'm furious. And out of a room comes my starting free safety and a couple friends. Coach, it's not us, it's the guy down below. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Well, I go into the room, and sure enough, they had the balcony door open because it, was getting some fresh air, and the guy down below is on the balcony smoking a joint. And it's coming right up into the room and right down the hallway. So I was like, okay, you guys were off the hook. I So I grabbed a piece I had left, And I don't know, just instincts being the butthead that I can be. I lean over the balcony and shout to the guy down below, go, hey, here's the pizza. You're going to need it later. Threw the pizza, told the kids to shut the doors, and told everybody else what was going on, because by then everybody knows Coach Swift's on a rampage. What do they call it? They go, Coach Swift spinning. He's spinning like a top. So we go to Autzen, and I got to be honest with you, I didn't like the atmosphere. I don't like big stadiums that are only maybe an eighth full. I mean, Autzen's a huge, well, it's not huge by your guys' standards in the South, but it's huge. And maybe a fourth of it had people in it. So we jump out to a 14-0 lead. But my quarterback blows his ankle out at the end of the first half, and we're a triple option team under center, and your cornerback's kind of the point guard that makes that happen. So we try to tape him up to get him through the half, and he does a great job, truthfully. He really does a great job. The bigger problem for us was on defense, because he played strong safety, and he played right next to my strong inside backer. He was playing on a sprained ankle. Two tight end, full T, was running off tackle power play action that put our strong safety in conflict, and not so much conflict. He just wasn't. We had two guys playing next to each other that wasn't very mobile. So they go down and score 3 touchdowns the second half, and are up 20-13. Because my All-State kicker's already missed one PAT, me not realizing that college goalposts are 6 feet narrower. So we're down 20-13 with about 5 minutes left in the fourth. So we connect on about an 80-yard bomb. Put my quarterback in shotgun so he doesn't have to drop much. And we run 4 verticals. And he gets the inside guy on the left free. And we score on an 80-yard touchdown. But we're out of timeouts because we've tried to destroy Lost River's rhythm with a timeout. We've tried to make adjustments with a timeout. And, we score. There's no timeouts. My quarterback's on the sidelines saying, what are we going to do? And usually I have about, 100 people on my ear telling me their suggestions. But all of a sudden I became a leper. And there was nobody around with suggestions. I'm looking at my quarterback, probably the greatest pure thinker I've ever had playing quarterback. The kid is phenomenal. And I look him in the eye, goes, your team, what are we going to do? And he goes, let's kick the extra point to get to 20-20 and take our chances in overtime. Not my choice, but the quarterback's choice. And I said, okay, let's do it. Well, my All-State kicker probably goes out and misses another PAT. And we end up losing 20-19. And you are the only person on this face of the earth that knows the conversation between me and quarterback, because I have chose to keep it secret since 2004. Because the kid is one of the greatest human beings I've ever been fortunate enough to coach. And it was a pure thought, hey, we got an All-State kicker, let's tie it up and maybe steal it in overtime. Hindsight 2020, of course, I should have ran what we call down on 1, out on 2. It's a little trickery for undisciplined teams. Normally the team goes down when you say down, but we don't go down until they hear hut one, and it usually draws the defense off sides. So then I would have been a yard and a half from the end zone, which if you can't get running off tackle, you probably don't deserve to win. But I protected a kid that I love. I would do the same. I always protect the kids I love. And we lost a gut-wrenching title, and, I did what every coach said. I said, hey, you just ran out of time. You just ran out of time, knowing in the back of my head that I would never let kids wear cleats like that again. I don't care how much they thought it was good luck. I would prepare for two, even though I always had good kickers. I didn't realize the goalposts were that much narrower. If it's a high school goalpost, we win by one. I think the worst thing about the whole thing is I got my kids with their parents and buses and left. I got my coaches with their kids, and I'm sitting on the steps of Autzen Stadium, and my lovely wife had forgotten me. So I'm sitting in the dark, a loser. No one's there to get me. And I'm beat. I think I'm like any good coach. I'm beating myself up, because at the end of the day, kids don't lose games, coaches lose games. I bought into the superstition. He'd been taping those cleats on for about 4 weeks. They were falling apart. I was stubborn. I didn't think I needed a couple other coverages. I got out-coached by a very dear friend of mine. He wasn't a friend at the time. We ended up being, we are really, really close now. Guy named Dennis Dunley. Lost River's a rural school like us, about 200 kids now. And he has a huge potato and weed farm that straddles Oregon and California's border. And he's if he had a son, he'd want him to grow up like Dennis. And I love his kids. He loves my daughters. I mean, it's amazing how you start off as rivals, and before you know it, you're the best of friends. So anyways, we lose. But the town's off my back now. Now it's whatever Swift says to do. I had a rancher who's a good friend of mine. He used to keep telling me, the kids don't need to lift during the summer. They don't need to lift. They don't need to lift. And then after we lost in 2004, if I didn't have the weight room open at a certain time during the summer, he would chew my ass. And I'm like, what's happened to you? You told me they didn't need to lift during the summer. Well, you convinced me otherwise. I'm like, okay, well, can you write that down somewhere so I can remember it? But we came back from the 2004 title, and I graduated a ton of kids. And so 2005 was a rebuilding year. I had a senior that was going to play tight end, but the kids came to my house one night, knocked on the door and said, hey, can we talk to you about quarterback? And I said, yeah, what's up? They go, well, James's Tourette is back, and playing quarterback is making it worse. He can't stop blinking. He can't stop stressing. It's not good for him, Coach. So I said, well, we'll move him to tight end, and we'll start the freshman, who was a ball boy on my sidelines in December and looked 12. And now he looks 13, and he's the starting quarterback for my varsity team. And somehow we end up 5-4, and we go too deep in the playoffs. We end up losing in the second round, come back. And in 2006, we thought that we had a good run at a state title. I had some really good seniors, and my sophomore quarterback was all that I was expecting to be. And I had a fullback that people have dreams about having a kid like that. And we lost in the semis. My fullback got a concussion, and the kids hid it from me. And we had trouble getting lined up defensively because he had a concussion. And we lost a tight ball game. The parents were pissed at me because they thought for sure we win. And, things happen. So I sat the kids down in the offseason and I said, look, don't you ever hide a head injury from me again. Ankle, no problem. Knee, no problem. Shoulder, no problem. I go, but we're not messing with heads or hearts. I go, do you understand me? I go, we could have seriously hurt our kid, and I respect you for wanting to keep him out there, but we got to do the right thing for kids. And so, all this is learning. That's why, me after 20 years of doing it, I'm still learning as a head coach. That's why I have trouble thinking guys 3-4 years into it are ready to be a head coach. Because they may know the X's and O's. They may know how to teach the spread or the wing tee. Do you know how to deal with kids and parents? Because that's really the art, in my opinion. We're losing the semis, but the kids have bought in. We're working out. We're lifting. Our kids are strong. I mean, we got kids cleaning 275, bench pressing 350, playing three ways. They don't even come off during special teams. So in 07, we're the team to beat, and we're wearing the target. We're wearing the target, and we run the table. We get to we play Lost River. Lost River decides they want to come over and play us in a preseason at our place. We whack them. We're beating people by 30, 40. I'm putting my freshman in the second half on defense, telling my kids, I'll declare the shutout. I want the young kids to get used to playing varsity football so we don't have the growth needed when you're gone. Beat our first round opponent by 45, and in comes Regis, a very prestigious small Catholic school up in the Salem area, which is our capital, and we're playing them at Willamette University, and they're good, and we're good, and we run. We're tight end running the veer, very similar to Osborne in Nebraska, very similar to De La Salle. Coach Ladisser is someone I've followed, been to his clinics, been to his camps, have great adoration for. But I don't have split back type backs. I have a true fullback, true tailback. And we start pounding them because our kids are true rural hunters, fishermen. They like a good street fight. We got great wrestlers here, and so put them in a telephone booth and let's have a fight. And we're up 14-7, and it's about midway through the fourth quarter. But momentum's beginning to shift towards Regis. And I call inside veer, and I tag it with a keep. I don't want him to read it. I want him to keep it and try to get it outside. Well, he plays out the fake deal. He reads it, pitches it to our tailback, who proceeds to go 70 yards for the nail in the coffin. And we score. But then Regis promptly goes down and scores some piss poor tackling and stuff like that. So it's 21-14, and there's time left. So I've told Jeffrey, my quarterback, all week, hey, if they give you this look, audibilize. I trust you. Audibilize and go to this pass. So we're trying to kill the clock. My daughter is my statistician and trainer on the sidelines to me. And Jeffrey decides he's going to audibilize. Great call. Great call to audibilize. But instead of throwing the ball away, he takes a sack. And I'm spinning. And Mariah calls Karen, Jeffrey's mom, in the stands and says, FYI, I think my dad's going to kill your son. And we recover from the sack and end up milking the clock and win our tightest playoff game, 21-14 over a good Regis team. We beat our semi-opponent by 30. And then we meet the most prestigious high school program in the state of Oregon, Vail. He's got an NFL Hall of Famer in it, Wilcox, who played with the Niners. 10 state titles, and they are rugged Eastern Oregon Cowboys. I mean, they have no problem hitting you in the mouth and watching it. I mean, and we proceed to beat a very good Vail team, 42-0. Now, my little daughter comes to me before the game in 20-degree weather with wind chill about 10 and says, "Hey, Dad, we're going to win." I'm like, "What makes you think that?" She points to their coach. She says, "They're wearing shorts as coaches." I'm like, "Well, okay, maybe we got a shot." So nothing, and the town's ecstatic. I mean, they've never won an outright state championship. They tied for a state championship in 1974, and one of my coaches is on that team. I go, "Well, you guys were state championships." He says, "No, you guys won it outright. You guys are true state champions." And then I find out that the reason they tied for the state title in 74 is my assistant coach and one of his buddies decided they would be quicker if they didn't play with their thigh pads in. So the opposing coach in 74 saw that and pointed out to the official at the right time to get 30 yards in penalties to be able to kick the tying field goal.
Oh.
So, yeah. So he's carried that with him, and he was ecstatic to see his son win an outright title. So it was great. I mean, and you do coach in a small town. When you coach in a small town and you win a state title, you're mayor. We came down to a huge pep assembly. We raised money to buy all the kids rings. Someone said, "You're going to buy freshman rings?" I go, "Yeah, I'm going to buy freshman rings." They get beat up all week. If there's no freshmen, who do we practice against? Bought them for the trainers, bought them for the counselors, bought them for the administrators. Had a huge party at the town, honored me and gave me a plastic key to the city that doesn't open anything. And kids were excited. I'd give it all back, Coach. 5 days later, my mom dropped dead. And never got to celebrate with her. Never got to get a hug. But the toughest thing I've ever experienced, because you want to be there when your parents die. And I got the phone call at a faculty meeting that morning that Mom had died. And I couldn't be there. And that's a scar I got to carry with me forever. And that coach, it's been, a long time. It still stings. It still stings with all my hardest things. And the town gets upset with me when I said I'd give it back in a heartbeat. But anybody who has a son that's lost their mother knows exactly what I'm talking about. So 08 came around. We had a really good team. We were expecting to repeat. But we knew our Achilles heel. We had decent secondary, but they were short. They were, at 5'5", 5'2" range. Good kids, good ball players. They're a little short. Ran up against the school, Grant Union. His quarterback had the game of his life and ended up losing 28-14. And And, my job's to pick up kids, and we picked them up and we dusted them off, and we gave hugs, and we talked about the journey and the memories, and I graduated probably the best pure quarterback I've ever coached in my life. The kid is a phenomenal athlete. Had several scholarships to some Division II schools and some Division NAIA schools. And he said, Coach, I'm a rancher. I need to run the ranch for my dad. He's getting old. Went to Oregon State. Went into the agricultural business school. Now runs a huge ranch on the coast that turns out 100% Wagyu beef that we willingly buy from them. And is a great father, a great cowboy, great alumni, great kid. When you coach in Southern California, everybody hangs their earmarks on D1 talent. In my years of coaching football at Gold Beach, we've had one D1 kid that went to Idaho. Most of my kids either join the Marine Corps, they like uniforms, and the Marine Corps uniform fits them very nicely. Or they go to college and carry on with their life. And I tell them, I go, there's nothing wrong with being a great high school ball player and then carrying on and getting ready for adult life.
And I think that's something that's lost on people these days.
Well, I think and I get in trouble with this all the time. I'm very outspoken, and I get in trouble because I don't think before I talk, and so be it. I'm passionate. There is so much more taught on that on that football field than's taught in any classroom. And what's taught in that football field is a hell of a lot more important than algebra, a hell of a lot more important than Shakespeare, a hell of a lot more important than the Civil War. The values that are taught on the football field are the values that have kept our culture going until recently, going the way it should be going. And it's heartbreaking. And I am proud of the young men that I have turned out. They are, I've been here long, I came real close to taking a job somewhere else, and the local newspaper guy said, hey, high school state championship coaches aren't supposed to leave. They're supposed to die in the town they did it. And my wife flat out loves it here. And there's a big high school north of us that really wanted me, came after me hard. Great facilities, great program, about 900 kids. And I was driving back from my final interview with them, getting ready to pull the trigger. And you know how when you're just driving in nature and God talks to you, and God says, what are you doing? You moved the woman of your life 900 miles from everything she knew, and she loves it where she's at, and now you're going to uproot her and move her 150 miles to an industrial, ugly city. What are you doing? Oh, and you're going to wear purple and look like friggin' Barney on the sidelines. And I got home, and I told my wife, I go, we're not doing it. And she looked at me, she goes, I've already told people we're leaving. I go, we're not going. I go, you don't want to go. You never wanted to go. You're doing it because of me. And that's not the way this marriage is supposed to work. You came sight unseen 900 miles to raise a family, and you've done a hell of a job. You're a friggin' saint. I go, we're staying. And she cried, a happy cry, gave me a big hug, and we stayed. And I got out of coaching and stayed as an AD. And coach, I miss coaching terribly. I still got the passion, I still got the energy, I still got the mind. But I ain't leaving that woman for nothing.
Well, she did take you to a Red Sox game.
That was my daughter.
Oh, that was your daughter.
Yeah, my daughter, when they were like 6 years old, they got Garcia Parra jerseys for Christmas. And I taught my daughters at an early young age there was a couple things that need to be passed on that are family traditions. I go, we are third generation Red Sox fans. When I was born, I was given a Ted Williams scrapbook. Bobby Dorr lived up the river from us here in Gold Beach in his final years. I got several baseball cards of Bobby. I even got a lot of baseballs signed by Bobby, but none of them are Major League Baseball, so they're worthless. But I'm a diehard Red Sox fan, and my daughter said, "Hey, for your birthday, we're going." And my first trip to the Red Sox, and it was a memorable one. There was a kid that had just called up to play third base that went to a school that used to come to our camp. And I screamed at him, I go, "Hey, you know Coach McFadden in East Lake?" And he turned and smiled. He goes, "Everybody knows Coach McFadden in East Lake." And I got two really special daughters, Coach. I really do. They're not perfect, but neither is their dad. But I feel blessed. I feel truly blessed, and we drop our enrollment drops by 2010. We're 135, and we're down to 2A. We'd won state at 3A in a 6th division state and won 3A, but we're down to about 135 kids, and now we're playing 2A, and we're still winning. And we get there in 2010, and we run up against a Buzz double wing team, Don Markham disciple, and we can't seem to get anything going offensively, and they waxed us. And truthfully, if we play them 10 times, they beat us 10 times. They were just flat out better than us. And our kids, and again, the good old boys that are the death of all of us everywhere in America. The good old, I'm telling the kids, you got to make piles. You can't sneak a peek. It's like hitting Normandy Beach. You're going to die, but you're going to die for your country right there on the beach, and you're going to be a hero. And all the old timers who know better than Coach Swift convince their kids to take a peek and stand up and fight off, and they hang 50 on us. And but we're there, and the town is happy. We all want to win. I'm miserable because I think I'm on the way of becoming the next Marv Levy. But we come back, lick our chops. We graduate a good class, and I got a good class coming back. I have a good quarterback. Here the week before the season is skimboarding and blows his shoulder out. And I said, well, it's a good thing we run the option. You're playing. Deal with it. And he did. I mean, he played a phenomenal season through. His shoulder finally didn't get out till an all-star game in the summer. But we made it to the state finals in 2011. And the team that waxed us and still had a better team than us, we beat 30-0. And if we play them 10 times, we probably beat them 4. They beat us 6. But that night we got them. We had a good defensive game plan. My 2 linebackers threatened the defensive kids all week. If you don't do exactly what Coach Swift says, we will cut your throat right there in the huddle. And these 2 kids are, let me tell you, they are the toughest 235-pound linebackers, fullbacks I've ever seen in my life. We have what we call Bloody Wednesday. It's a full-on scrimmage. And my all-state receiver cracked back on my starting fullback, and I thought, okay, it's done. And he pops up, and he says it's just a sprain, and we get ice, and he goes climbing up Billy Goat Hill out of the stadium because we're a sunken stadium, so we have an asphalt way up where the kids have found a path they just burnt into the ivy called, goat path, and he went up the goat path, and I said, well, he's going to be okay. And I started him every game, but I got his twin brother in as soon as I could. because I wanted him to keep the streak of being a starter and starting every game, but got his twin brother in. And about a week before the state final game, I said, hey, let's go have an x-ray just to see where we're at. So he comes from getting back from the x-ray and he goes, Coach. I go, hey, what's up, Kyle? He goes, you're a really good coach. I said, thanks, Kyle. He goes, well, you're a terrible doctor. He goes, my ankle's broke. I'm like, well, bummer. I go, it's got to be close to being healed now. He goes, oh, I'm playing. Don't worry about it. I'm playing. And so we play. And here's another funny story. So we had practiced a sprint out pass all season long. We do this Kentucky drill. I have all three quarterbacks throwing routes in our pass plays and a coach throwing the fourth route. And we're running this play. And my quarterback, who's a really bright kid, comes up to me and says, hey, we got to run this play. I'm like, when we need it to win, yeah, we're going to run it. But when we run it, it's going to be so much muscle memory that we're successful at it. So 14 games and I don't call it. And it's 0-0 in the second quarter. We force them to turn the ball over on fourth down. It's our ball. I send the play in with the tight end, inside veer left. And he gets about halfway out there, and then that voice in my head says, you chicken shit. So I burn a timeout, and I go out. I said, okay, Kip, here we go. I go wing, option, sprint pass, 572. His eyes get huge. Well, the silo coaches know that I don't want to throw the ball. And their linebackers are 3 yards deep into the line of scrimmage before they realize it's a sprint out. And we complete the pass and get down to their 10. And it stalls. So I call another play that we haven't run much, called Rocket. No, it wasn't Rocket. Rocket was strong side. We're going to run a little two-man speed option out of shotgun to the weak side. And my quarterback executes it beautifully. We score. We go up 8-0. They come close to scoring the end of the first half. We get the ball the second half. Run inside veer, like all the way down the field, 5-6, 3, 5-6 in chunks to score, to go up 16. Then I call the pass again, and it's a touchdown this time. So run it 2 times, 2 big plays, and we end up coming out with a 30-0 win. They're shell-shocked. Our fans are shell-shocked. And we win in a game we're not supposed to win. And we proceed to, I have the sheriff of the counties on my staff at this time. And he proceeds, hey, we're going to the Mexican restaurant to leave and have a dinner before we leave. And we drove 3.5 hours home at about 10 o'clock when none of us should have been driving, following our sheriff with his lights on, keeping us safe. And I got home at, 2:30 in the morning, and I learned to my wife, I go, get out a bottle of wine. I got to watch this replay and make sure it's true. Because we weren't supposed to win that game. But obviously my kids said we should win that game, and the kids did what kids can do. They surprise you. And
so what's life like now for you that you're retired?
Pardon me?
So what's life like now for you being retired?
I still coach. About 8 years ago, me and Chris Fisher, the guy that runs Texas Chat on Wednesday nights, we were both talking about how And I got no problem with people charging people for what they know. But I grew up, and everything I knew about football was given to me. I didn't have to pay to learn how to run the option. I didn't have to pay how to run, Don James's, GM Tough. Coaches, mentored, you learn, you went to clinics, you did all those things, and Google changed all that. So I said, I'm going to start a football tool chest. That's for free. I don't want to charge a soul. I want to give back to the game that I love with all my heart. And I do. I mean, I was made by football. My faith, my family, and football are all grounded in the lessons taught by me, by the football coaches that I grew up with. And they were all great men, great husbands, great educators. My buddies in Texas go, you got to teach. I go, yeah. And I go, here's the crazy thing. I like it. I like getting in front of the classroom and teaching social studies. I like seeing my kids see me wearing multiple hats, knowing that it is possible to be good at several things. I loved it. I taught 6 periods of social studies. I taught every social studies in the school. I taught world geography. I taught U.S. history. I took government and econ. Oh, and I was the AD and only had 1 period to deal with that. And I loved it. And so I went out to my coaching network, and I have a phenomenal Google tool chest that's free for coaches. I had 14 followers a month ago, and then some crypto miner hacked my Twitter account. And because I didn't pay Elon the money for the blue chip, I didn't have one of those, 2 authenticators. So I couldn't get it back. So now I've created a new account with my measly 300 followers. But the tool chest is still there, and coaches are still using it. And I am forever grateful for the coaches that volunteered film and PowerPoints and that. And I tell people, I go, hey, we could be saving a young marriage. I mean, the fact is, coaches get divorced. I'm sure you saw Coach McDonald saying he only sees his son for a half hour during the week. And I appreciate his honesty, but that's way out of balance. Way out of balance. And I ran the tool chest to help save some marriages, learn some football when you're home with your wife, doing some honeydews while you're doing that, and to give back to a community that I love and respect so much. My wife let me buy an RV trailer and go 4 hours from here over to the valley to help a buddy of mine run his defense. I lived in a crappy little trailer with no internet, no TV, and it was not near as romantic and nostalgic as I thought it was. I'm sure I would eat well, and I didn't. I promised I wouldn't let some of the shortcomings of the staff that I was on get to me, and I did. And so after a year, I said, you know what? I really like the head coach. I really like his family. I want to keep him as a friend. So I'm going to come home and retire. And I came home not because I couldn't have kept coaching her and worked through it. I came home because my first love is still my wife. And the thought of, we're getting up there in age. She had a health scare. And when you have a health scare and your husband's 4 hours away, it kind of turns the light on of what the heck are you doing? So fortunately, the health scare was a false flag. But I decided to come home and focus on being a great husband, great father. I got a wedding I'm putting on in April, where I think most of Texas will be in Gold Beach. I got my youngest daughter who's struggling with some things and needs her dad's help, and I'm there for that. And I got a fridge full of salmon and halibut and elk and venison, and I do a lot of consulting, and I'm writing a book.
That's awesome.
Fear and Loathing on the Oregon coast. But my experience as a coach, it is. I tell people it was as eye opening for me as it was for them. You know, you've coached at a rural school most of your life. I came from huge schools. You know, modern days 2,700, largest Catholic school west of the Mississippi. Downey Warren High School is 3,700. You know, 250 teachers. And so it was a culture shock for me as much as it was a culture shock for them when I got here. They didn't give up on me. I didn't give up on them. And I didn't give up on the vision I had for this place. And those boys, my boys, did some truly amazing things. Truly amazing things, and I am forever grateful to them. You know, my wife says, "You love your boys, don't you?" I go, "Yeah, I do." That's why every time I have a job that I can't do, I'm calling one of my boys first, and if they say they can't do it, then I'll look where else. But I go, I know how difficult it was to play for me. I know how hard and demanding I was on those kids. And I think that's another reason I got out. You know, Saban got out because we're getting soft. I'm getting out. You can't coach the way kids need to be coached. I don't know why it was good enough for the parents, but it doesn't seem to be good enough for their kids. But I'm not interested in being a Girl Scout troop leader. I'm interested in being a football coach. And quite frankly, coach, the climate in today's world, us old guys who are demanding, aren't well appreciated. You know, someone asked me, what's wrong? I said, well, you know, in the 70s, 80s, clear up until the early 90s, every single superintendent had a military or coaching background, and discipline was something that everyone believed was important for the well-being of the school. That's not the case anymore. And I think without discipline, schools flounder. I think without discipline, academics come up short. I think without discipline, athletics come up short. And I'm not sure anybody's willing to stand up to parents and do what's right. You know, my dad taught me before he passed, he goes, you know, they teach administrators how to avoid lawsuits. And I told him, I go, if you're not pushing the envelope and on the verge of a lawsuit, are you really doing your job? And he kind of laughed. He says, you're right. And he goes, but be prepared for a lot of scars. And I've had my license threatened 5 times while I'm in the state. And I've said, bring it. And I've won every single meaningless, stupid case they brought against me to jeopardize my license. But it's 66 years old, and our enrollment continuing to go down. I mean, right now, Gold Beach plays 9-man football, and I think the enrollment's 60 kids in high school, graduating 13 class. I think my days on the sidelines are numbered. And you know what? While I may not be ready for that, I'm okay. I've had a career that a lot of people would give anything to have. I mean, I know how lucky I am to play in 5 state title games. I know how lucky I am to win 2. I know how lucky I am to survive those 5 or 6 years. Because I was a great teacher, they didn't get rid of me. You know, it's really easy to get rid of a football coach when he doesn't do a good job in the classroom. But I'm as good a teacher as I'm a football coach, and I take pride in that. The stinking priest at my high school made sure of that. Okay. You know, I get melancholy and I get down every now and then, and I miss it, and nothing lasts forever. had a great career, and we'll see what the future brings. I mean, right now my focus is my two daughters, getting one married and helping the other one because she needs some help. So I would tell every coach out there, you got to make your family as important as football. You have to. Or you're going to wake up one day and not have a family. And if you're like me, there ain't another woman on this earth that can put up with me. So, take care of your faith, take care of your family, and if you do those, you'll do just fine with football.
Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Well, I don't really think it's any that unusual than anybody else's. Oh, I'll tell you what I'm doing now. I'm buying me a brand new surfboard, and I'm getting back in the water.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm going to be shark bait. I'll be the slow fat guy in the black wetsuit that the shark thinks is a slow seal. Okay. But you know what? They'll forget me as a football coach here, but if I get eaten by a shark, they'll never forget who I was.
That's right. Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Well, I got a million stories I could tell you, but we're limited. But here, one last one, just because everyone knows about Oregon, California, Washington. So it's 1998. And during practice that week, the DEA helicopters had flown over the field on the way to the airport, because the airport's catty corner from our field, and then unloaded all their eradication of marijuana, illegal marijuana being grown up in the hills of Oregon. And we're playing Trinity Valley out of Weaversville, California, another school in the Emerald Triangle. And they get here, and we're getting ready for kickoff. And the strongest, most pungent odor of marijuana starts sitting over my stadium. And I turn to my principal, I go, what is going on? He goes, well, they decided to burn all the marijuana in the hospital incinerator tonight, and the wind's blowing this way. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And a couple of the Trinity Valley parents chuckled and said, hey, thanks for making us feel at home. And I think it was the best snack bar night our snack bars ever had. So I had no idea when I was moving up here. I was moving into the heart of the Emerald Triangle, but I did, and found a way to win despite all of it. So it's been a good life. It really has been. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks, Coach.